Getting an update, you know that I talk often about public safety, and I am a law enforcement, I would say a public safety advocate. But one area of that, I talk about the three legs of the stool. You have to have law enforcement that is willing and able and equipped and staffed to go out and catch criminals and build cases. You have to have prosecutors that are willing to prosecute those cases and judges that level fair sentences. Well, to talk about one leg of that stool right now is the county attorney, Rachel Mitchell. Thanks for coming in and doing this.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike. I appreciate it.
I like these updates because, as we know, there were questions a few years ago when you were appointed in the office. There were questions about what was happening there, and I know it's taken a lot of work. Can you give us a little bit of an update? And I want to get into this DOJ report in a minute and how it plays into it. But how is staffing and how are the results out of your office? Are you satisfied with where you are?
Well, I'm never satisfied with where we are because I always want to achieve, even more excellence. But it is going really well. We had a lack of personnel. We have made up that deficit. And in fact, for the first time in 5 years, I asked for the Board of Supervisors to give me more prosecution positions because we were filling them. And they did. People are coming back. Morale is great. Backlogs have been reduced or eliminated. Police, law enforcement relationships vastly improved. So it's going well.
And so I'm glad to hear that from the Board of Supervisors because we've heard about budget cuts and how they've been able to balance the budget and there's no debt in the county, but that doesn't, you still want to make sure that we're fully funding things. Are you happy with the funding you're getting from the county?
Absolutely. They've been very helpful to us and to the sheriff's office as well because they set their budget and they have prioritized, law enforcement and community safety.
The DOJ took almost 3 years, just short of 3 years, to write a report. It was a scathing report about the city of Phoenix, but it also talked about prosecution. Can you talk about it from the perspective of a prosecutor? What was your take from that report, and what motivated you to write the op-ed piece you did?
Well, you've heard the expression, solution in search of a problem. This was actually a problem in search of a problem because they came in, they established what they wanted to find, and then they found it, and they, cut and pasted from facts to try to prove that. But the bottom line is when you read that, it is lacking context, it's lacking facts. And I read what they wrote about my office, about an individual who was involved in the protest cases, and they made it sound like, well, the state bar had to come in and clean house. I cleaned house. I'm the one that came in and fired that individual. We had referred her to the state bar. I testified against her. We put training and policies in place to make sure that never happened again. We didn't need an outside effort to do that.
And see, that's where, and I don't want to drag you into my opinions on the city of Phoenix, of the report against Phoenix, but that's the part of it I've been trying to say to listeners is that you have to understand that the Phoenix Police Department has always been a self-assessing, self-correcting agency. And I would say that about your office as well, that if there's an issue, we admit there's an issue, we fix the issue, we make sure it doesn't happen again. We don't need people, they're acting as if the city is blindly going out and just letting cops run amok, and when something bad happens, they're covering it up, and that's not what I've seen.
Not at all. I mean, first of all, you have Chief Mike Sullivan, who is committed to, reforming the agency and has done so much already, and he answers to the city council, which answers directly to the voters. You don't get that with DOJ. And you also need boots on the ground that knows the community, not somebody sitting back 3,000 miles away in Washington, D.C., telling us how we should police our city. It's not effective.
And I know that, I don't know if your office has been affected by this, but the county has been under what is not a consent decree, but they've been under government oversight for over a decade.
Right.
And it's cost tens of millions of dollars out of the county budget.
Almost $300 million.
And they still have not done anything to say you've improved and you've met the goals. They're still under this and with no end in sight.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at when this happened. This happened under Sheriff Arpaio. Since Arpaio left office, we have elected somebody from the opposite party, Paul Penzone, twice. We now have somebody else in as acting sheriff, and we're going to elect somebody. And what do we have to show for this besides missing $300 million from taxpayers' money? They are crippling that agency. it's just we're paying for floors of buildings for their office space that they don't even use, and we're paying $100,000 a year for that.
Yeah, and they weren't here for a few years, 3 years, and they blamed it on COVID. But I'm a taxpayer in Maricopa County. We paid for the office space.
Absolutely. The only reason the cleaning crew went in, and that triggered some alarm because we had it locked down because they didn't realize anybody was there. I mean, that's how vacant they have left that office space.
I want to shift to crime because violent crime is down post-pandemic. We are seeing homicides down nationally. I live in Phoenix, so I pay attention to that. The numbers there for violent crime is down. What is that attributed to, and what is your office doing differently, if you're doing anything differently with violent criminals?
Yeah, obviously a ton of credit goes to the police who investigate these cases and handle them. But I think also we've played a role in that because one of the things that we've emphasized is going in and asking for appropriate bail on people who commit repetitive or violent crimes to hold them in. The bail had gotten very, very low here. And so the bail we've started to see go back up. And I think that takes people off the street that need to be taken off the street at an earlier point. And we've also toughened our penalties. We've harshened our plea offer related to gun violence. We're addressing other types of crime like organized retail crime, which, as you know, feeds money into other criminal enterprises. And I think overall that's leading to lower crime here.
Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell is joining us. You brought up sentencing and you brought up the plea deals. There was criticism toward your office about what we saw in the East Valley violence when those cases, there were a lot of these plea deals. How do you answer to those questions about plea deals given to people and how you decided that and what went on?
Thanks for asking, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. First of all, we have the Preston Lord homicide case. Those individuals have not pled. They are facing trial, and they've been charged with first-degree murder. The other cases, those were actually under the law, misdemeanor assaults. And what we did was we argued that because there were multiple offenders, that their ability to resist was impaired. That's how the law reads. So we were able to get it up to a Class 6 felony. So when they're pleading to a Class 6 felony, they're pleading to the charge. They're not pleading to a reduced charge. And one of the things I've already talked to one of the Representative Matt Gress in the legislature, and he's agreed to sponsor legislation to increase the penalties where we're seeing multiple attackers like this so that we're not dealing with a Class 6 felony.
And see, that was the not miscommunication, but that was where people didn't understand. We're not lawyers. We don't understand. But it sound to a lot of people, it's like, why are these people getting plea deals as if they're getting reduced charges? But you actually were able to get the charges increased, and then they pled to a higher charge. Right,
exactly. And those, if you go to trial on a Class 6 felony, when I train, I describe a Class 6 as sort of the purgatory between misdemeanor and felony. They can be knocked down to misdemeanors. So to get them to plead to a Class 6 felony when they're charged with that was really to the credit of the wonderful prosecutors that work for me.
I appreciate the update. I know we kind of went through this very quickly, but I like the updates, and I hope you'll come back to give us more, because I think the piece of this, we focus on the police when it comes to law enforcement, but your office is such a big, important part of that. So thanks for coming in.
Thanks a lot, Mike. I appreciate it.
All right, that is Rachel Mitchell joining us for a few moments. She is the county attorney.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Catch up on Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast, and click the button in the middle to subscribe.